If I were Israel, I wouldn't even provide matching socks to Gaza. But here's all the aid that y'all claim doesn't exist. Now walk with me. I'm here in Gaza, and all I see is food, water, and opportunity. But instead of Hamas distributing the ramen noodles, they're eating it all, and that's why their leaders are on Ozempic. The United Nations brings the food here to look like they're actually doing something productive, but they never finish the job, just like your ex. Now this food is sitting here collecting flies, but y'all want to blame Israel. Then you have Egypt, who built the wall of Donald Trump's dreams, keeping the Palestinians here, but y'all don't say anything to them. Why don't you call on any of the nations of Islam to distribute the food to Palestinians? Mind you, there is petroleum right there. Energy. Gaza got the energy. Gaza got the terrorists wasting all the energy.
The repulsive genocide-denying propaganda that you just watched was produced by right-wing MAGA influencer Xavier DeRusso, and he was one of multiple right-wing influencers that took a trip to Israel that was sponsored by the government of Israel. And the purpose of said trip, of course, was to film aides sitting in a GHF distribution center to downplay, I guess, their deliberate mass starvation of Palestinians in Gaza. Really, really sick shit. And it's the type of propaganda that Israel is now apparently paying influencers to produce, specifically MAGA influencers, seeing as how young Republicans, much like young Democrats, are turning on Israel. It's why Netanyahu is appearing on more right-wing podcasts like The Nelk Boys, PBD, Trigonometry, and Officer Tatum. And prior to that, it's why he had a private meeting with some of the largest right-wing podcasters, including Tim Pool. It's why Israel and its proxies like the ADL are deleting their glossary of extremists, which included conservative groups like Turning Point USA, in an effort to extend an olive branch to MAGA. It's also why Israeli firms are increasingly courting MAGA influencers in order to address the right-wing divide over the genocide. According to Axios, Israel 365 organized the recent trip for 15 MAGA influencers, including Xavier DeRusso, and also likely for Fabian Garcia, as well as Jane Zirkle, who shared the same exact photograph with an IDF soldier. You can also see Cam Higbee in the group if you look closely, another known propagandist for Israel. It also appears to include a small Gen Z influencer named Lance Videos, who posted his first genocide-denying video back on August 20th to his hundreds of followers, only to get brutally ratioed. But as Twitter user Gen X Girl points out, he still managed to gain thousands of new followers after making that post, despite its unpopularity. But aside from the trips, Nick Cleveland Stout reports for Responsible Statecraft that Israel is paying a cohort of 14 to 18 influencers up to $7,000 per post on social media sites such as Instagram and TikTok. And they were expected to produce 75 to 90 posts between June and September of this year, which amounts to more than 6,000 per post on the low end and 7,000 per post on the high end. And the only reason why we even know about this covert effort to influence American politics is because of documents obtained through the Foreign Registration Act. But another interesting coincidence, we'll call it, is that Bridge Partners, the group that works for Israel that's bankrolling this propaganda campaign, is calling it Esther Project, not to be confused with Project Esther, which is the plan formulated by the Heritage Foundation, who cooked up Project 2025 to crush the Palestinian solidarity movement in the United States. Now, we don't know who the 14 to 18 influencers are, since that's being kept secret, but you can make a pretty good guess, since some of the coordination between influencers and Netanyahu himself are taking place right out in the open. Case in point, listen to Charlie Kirk's protege ask war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu what they can do to combat the rising anti-Israel sentiment on the right, and he's going to reference his army of paid shills.
So with Charlie's assassination and with the kind of trajectory that we see with like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel. What's our backup plan to be strong, like outside of the diaspora?
Christian influencers. Yeah. You said, you talked about the woke right. And he said, I call it the woke Reich. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance.
Nothing to see here, just the leader of a foreign government admitting that he's conducting a brainwashing operation on Americans. We give them billions of our tax dollars every single year, and rather than saying thank you, he whines about Americans not sufficiently supporting his genocidal apartheid state. Israelis have free healthcare, they have heavily subsidized education. Meanwhile, in the United States, we don't have those things. We're giving them our money as Americans are going bankrupt due to medical bills. We're not allowed to even file for bankruptcy on student loans, so I guess we're just SOL there. Yet, our tax dollars are effectively subsidizing Israel's attempt to brainwash all of us, because by funding their genocide, that frees up more money for them to get us to support their genocide through propaganda campaigns like this one. It is genuinely sickening, but the silver lining is that this is a sign that Israel is losing. Netanyahu knows that there is no support for Israel among the Democratic Party's base, and support is quickly eroding among the Republican Party's base, especially among younger Republicans. So the best that they can hope for at this point is to maintain support for Israel, at least as a bipartisan issue, because Netanyahu knows that the days of bipartisan support are coming to an end, hence why they're desperately courting MAGA influencers to try to salvage whatever support they still have among the right. But the most hilarious part about this entire pathetic story is that even among the right, it's getting increasingly difficult for Israel to try to find talented propagandists to do their bidding. So they're now left with the most desperate, hack, cringeworthy influencers who only rival the worst AI slop and shittiness. But since they're not disclosing who they are, we don't know who they are. We can only speculate about who is on the payroll. But Twitter user Gen X Girl has already narrowed it down to these influencers who attended either the Israel 365 trip, billionaire Bill Ackman's private retreat in the Hamptons, or Netanyahu's influencer event, the one that you saw a clip from. And it's plausible that any of these influencers could be the ones getting paid $6,000 to $7,000 per post about Israel, but all of them are completely talentless. The list includes Emily Austin, Xavier DeRusso, the cringe lord you saw at the beginning of this video, Cam Higbee, CJ Pearson, Kristen Wan, and others. Now, some of the influencers have gotten a little bit defensive, especially about the Bill Ackman event, which was a Turning Point USA event that Charlie Kirk reportedly attended to. And Candace Owens alleges that Bill Ackman tried to stage some sort of intervention of Charlie Kirk at that event to try to get him to be pro-Israel again after he seemingly strayed from the path. I don't necessarily know or give a shit about that, because both Bill Ackman and Candace Owens are deeply untrustworthy. But what does interest me is how disingenuous the response was from the other creators who attended this event. For example, Kristen Wan, who was also there, claims that they weren't actually taking marching orders from a Zionist billionaire. It was more of a debate about Israel at most.
I was a guest at the Hamptons. I was in the sessions. I do not know everything that took place. Obviously, there could have been conversations outside of the sessions that I was in. I met Bill Ackman. He did not come across as aggressive. I never witnessed him yelling at Charlie. It never felt like an intervention. It just felt like, a bunch of influencers getting together to debate various topics. There were a lot of pro-Israel influencers there. I did notice that, but there were also critics of Israel there. So it opened the room up for really good debate.
I'm sure. I'm getting deja vu almost from the chorus kerfuffle, although this is exponentially worse, admittedly. But the reason why I showed you that clip was to demonstrate how disingenuous these people are. And on that note, in a video titled, "Was I Paid to Visit Israel?", Xavier DeRusso addresses the criticism that he received for the shameless genocide apologia that he produced, and he gives us the answer to the question that we're all asking.
I want to address the allegation, was I sponsored to go to Israel? Or was I paid to go there? So first with the latter, no. Nobody wrote me a check to go to Israel. Nobody wrote me a check to go to Gaza.
Now, you might be thinking how bizarre it is that he chose to go to Gaza to do propaganda for them for free, which is one, embarrassing, and two, hard to believe, seeing as how nobody is allowed in Gaza, not even journalists. So the idea that he just chose to flippantly take a trip there on his own accord seems unlikely. But as he keeps talking, he ends up admitting that while he wasn't paid to go there per se, some of the accommodations were in fact comped.
I'm a very transparent person. Israel 365 did help put together a whole trip where they were helping some influencers and creators and people who are behind the scenes. They were helping get us there to take us on a tour. So yeah, I went there with them, and they got a small grant that had to do with, like, I think they said like a quarter of their expenses, and it was just like a grant to help, you know, people come and see what was actually going on. And that had nothing to do with the Gaza trip, by the way. Also, there's this allegation that we were forced to make content. No, we weren't. No, we weren't. I don't think during the actual tour itself, I made any videos. I was just vibing on the tour, and I was already going, mind you. People are trying to make it so much deeper than it was, and it really wasn't. There was no paycheck to go. They didn't even pay for my full hotel, mind you. Like, I paid for like a significant portion of my own hotel, which is fine. Like, yes, did they pay for my flight? Yeah. The amount of hate I deal with alone just for being a Zionist is not worth a check. Like, especially, it's not worth a free flight. Okay, I can buy my own flight. Like, my bills are not affected. Like, I work very hard. Trust, I can pay for my own flight. I fly every single week at this point. I don't need a free flight. That is not enough incentive for me to cover up starvation and support genocide. Like, do you hear yourself? Like, you might not like me, but to think that I'm an evil enough person to want to support genocide because I'm getting a paycheck, that is insane.
Yeah, except the only thing more insane than that is covering up starvation and supporting a genocide for free, which is what he wants us to believe. And I genuinely don't know if he's being purposefully obtuse or just disingenuous. I take it it's the latter, but the discounted vacation that they gave him was the payment. This is how influence peddling works. Maybe there wasn't an explicit assertion that you have to make a video in Gaza denying starvation, but it was likely implied that the conditions for going on the trip was that you'd share the truth about what's really happening in Gaza, or perhaps, you know, that's how it was pitched to him in the email that they sent him. I don't know, but that's why him and all of the other bootlicking influencers that went there did the same thing, filmed the same style of video in front of the aid distribution center. And let me just say, you all should be fucking ashamed of yourselves. We are witnessing a modern day Holocaust, and you're running cover for the equivalent of the Nazis, who are eradicating an entire group of people, and you're going there to make light of it and deny it. I don't know how you sleep at night, and regardless of how you feel about it right now, you're a young man. Specifically, I'm speaking to Xavier. You're a young man who's going to look back at this moment when you're older with embarrassment. Not because I think that you have the capacity to feel shame, but because one day in the not too distant future, all of society will pretend as if they were against this all along. But it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to uphold that charade since you're on the record vociferously supporting this genocide with your full chest. And whether you admit this to yourself or not, you are going to try to hide from your cringeworthy genocide-denying TikToks, but like it or not, you will never be able to live this down. And deep down, I think that you know that this is indefensible, which is why your propaganda is so fucking bad. It's why you have to pretend as if the people opposed to this genocide are anti-Semitic. And I keep saying how bad this propaganda is, but I want to show you some examples to demonstrate just how bad this is.
Imagine supporting people who start wars just to lose the wars so they can cry about it and then try it all again.
You musty anti-Semites are literally obsessed with Jews. Now walk with me. While you musty anti-Semites are stacking eviction notices, Jews are out here stacking up businesses.
Jews control all the industries. Maybe if you spent more time taking notes from successful people, you wouldn't have to spend your nights and weekends spreading hate from your anonymous account with an anime profile picture.
Do you work as hard as Jews? Do you network like Jews? No, because you're too busy cheering on a group of musty terrorists who smell like dirty earring backs. And if we're gonna keep it real, you're really mad because your income is giving side hustle.
Period.
How you gonna hate from outside, Shabbat? You can't even get in. Israel's one of the most diverse places in the world. They love everybody who's not a musty genocidal terrorist. A lot of you think I'm being paid by AIPAC to support Israel, but I'm not. I just really like the Jews and I don't want a terrorist state established in the Middle East. And a lot of that is because I feel like they would come for us next. However, if AIPAC ever offered, I would 100% cash the check because my rent is due on the 1st. So no, AIPAC does not pay me. But I wish that they did. However, who does pay me is America First Healthcare, where you are able to get an affordable, customizable plan. How dare you get mad at me because I actually went to Gaza to prove that there was food there? I get told every day that I'm going to regret being a Zionist. Why would I feel shame about fighting against terrorists taking over the Middle East? You anti-Semites lie daily and even plastered this sick child everywhere saying that he's starving as if you've never heard of cerebral palsy.
I really don't think I've ever seen a compilation of clips that are so evil yet cringeworthy enough to make my skin crawl at the same time. I don't even know how to react to that. The fact that he filmed those TikToks and clicked post is befuddling to me. People like this, they have no morals, no integrity, and not enough shame to feel even the slightest sense of hypocrisy, even though on his YouTube channel, he has a video titled, "Foreign Bots Are Dividing Our Country." Are they now? Yeah. Well, maybe you should look in the mirror, bud, because you're part of the problem, regardless if you're getting the $6,000 to $7,000 per post on Israel's behalf or not. But that's the thing. We don't know for sure who's actually getting the bag, and odds are this kind of thing is going to become a lot more insidious since Pam Bondi ended the Foreign Agents Registration Act task force on her first day as Attorney General, which was established to combat secret influence campaigns of foreign governments. But Trump wanted her to do this because he claimed that it unfairly targeted conservatives, likely because a bunch of them were caught taking Russian money through tenant media. So now foreign countries probably feel a lot more emboldened to try to influence American politics through social media. And to make matters worse, TikTok's algorithm will likely soon be controlled by Safra Catz, the American-Israeli CEO of Oracle, who's long expressed interest in embedding support for Israel in the United States. And interestingly enough, Netanyahu recently told a group of influencers that TikTok could be consequential for Israel with regard to their ability to shore up support for their genocide and to combat the woke Reich, as he ironically called it. So people like Xavier DeRusso could soon be heavily rewarded for all of the shilling that he's doing for Israel, regardless if he's getting paid or not, because if Larry Ellison does take over TikTok, then he could be pushed by the algorithm and blasted into all of our feeds, and as a result, that's going to make him a lot more famous. So just beware of the fact that there is going to be an army of pro-Israel drones either getting paid with money or trips to gaslight all of us into thinking that genocide has widespread support, when factually speaking, it simply does not. But the fact that they even feel the need to do this is a sign that they're losing. And regardless if these charlatans are getting paid to post pro-Israel propaganda or not, it doesn't substantively matter at the end of the day. If you see somebody defending a genocide, regardless if they're getting paid, a genocide, by the way, that's been well documented for nearly 2 years, you can safely just assume that this person is a disgusting piece of shit, not worth your time. Money or not. Block them and move on. They're fighting a losing battle and they know it. That's why they're ramping up the effort to brainwash all of us, but don't buy into it. Israel is committing a genocide and the world is soon going to all unanimously agree that that is indeed the case.